came to All Saints because of some very good friends, Claudia and Jeff Springer. If any of you know Claudia and Jeff. We've been friends with the Springers since the early 80s. I taught all of their children. Claudia taught all of our children. It's just been a long and a wonderful friendship. And we were in Canada one early September. We were all on a trip together. And Jeff kept going back to the room early, and finally my husband Bill said, "Jeff, what are you doing? Don't you want to do whatever we're all doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm starting to teach a Sunday school class in our 50 plus group at church, and I'm back preparing the lessons." And so we all started talking, and Bill said, "Well, we'd like," because we had been under his teaching many, many times in Sunday schools, and we said, "Well, we'd like to come to your Sunday school class." And at that time we were attending another church. And he said, "Oh, that would be great." So for about 4 or 5 weeks, we would come to Sunday school at All Saints and then run up to our church and go to the 11 o'clock service. And we did that more than a couple of Sundays. And finally one Sunday when we were racing up to our church, Bill said to me, "What do you think about just going to All Saints on a permanent basis?" He said, "I just feel like God is calling us to be part of that congregation." And I had been feeling that same way for weeks, but I thought, but because my husband was sick with cancer, and I just didn't feel like upsetting the apple cart in the spiritual realm either. And so I said, "That's wonderful, I think we should." So we started attending All Saints. And that was in October of 2019. And I started attending Joanne Moore's 50 plus women's Bible study. And Bill started going to the men's Bible study. And we were part of a small group. And then March 2020 came. And COVID just, knocked it all down. And, but now, not the women's Bible study, but our small group study kept meeting virtually. And of course, we had worship services. One of the things that we loved about All Saints, forgive me, was not the preaching, and it was not the teaching, but it was the beauty of the worship there. It was the liturgy. And my husband was raised Catholic. And so sometimes for him, that's a real turnoff. But he said, "But this is so different because it's meaningful, and because I feel God speaking to me through the things that we say back and forth." So that was really and truly, and the preaching also, and the teaching. So we did become members, and then COVID came. And June of that year of COVID, my husband became much worse than he had been in the previous 17 years that he battled a particular cancer that he had. And by August, he was really not so good. But then church opened up again, and I have never ever forgotten this. In fact, it was one of the things that sometimes I would cry in the middle of church because I would remember him kneeling at confession and when church opened again. And he was able to go to 4 services. And then they put him in the hospital because he was going to have another stem cell transplant. And 2.5 weeks later, the Lord took him home. But that's when the beauty of All Saints jumped in. Because your mother-in-law, I remember knocking on my door 2 days after my husband had passed away. And she had a mask on. Everybody still had masks on. And she had a big bag from Honey Baked Ham. And she said, "I don't know what anybody else is doing, but I want to bring you some food." And so, and he passed away on a Thursday. I went to church that following Sunday, and Claudia Springer and Joan Mulbert and an entire group of people were waiting for me as I got out of my car and stood there and put their arms around me and prayed with me. The beauty of the worship and the beauty of the community of our church is what brought us there. Every time I walk in the sanctuary, I have this feeling of this is where I need to be. Since my husband passed away, I've often gone into church and just sat in the back and sat and prayed. It is a beautiful, the architecture does speak to you. It's stark, and so it's just you and God.